In Vovchansk, Ukrainian armed forces soldiers were actively massing in the building and had likely begun using it as an air defense center. However, they were unaware they were being monitored and became targets for Russian missiles. At least 40 Ukrainian soldiers were identified as being present at the time of the attack. Russian flag in southern Vovchansk. Russian armed forces have cleared a residential area in the southern part of Vovchansk, isolating the remnants of the Ukrainian armed forces garrison located in a private residence in the southeast. Russian Air Force footage. A Kh-39 missile destroys a UAV control center of the 77th Separate Airborne Brigade of the Armed Forces of Ukraine near Boguslavka. A FAB-3000 PVD destroys a UAV control center of the 1st Separate Airborne Regiment of the Armed Forces of Ukraine near Ravnopoli. Panorama of Siversk. Russian troops are continuing their offensive on Siversk in the Donetsk People's Republic, advancing simultaneously from 3 directions towards the main part of Siversk. The city is strategically important as it occupies a key road to Lyman and Slavyansk. The conflict in Ukraine represents far more than just a physical battlefield. This constantly evolving digital war on screens and social media is fundamentally changing the nature of modern conflict. A video recently released by the Russian Ministry of Defense showing a supposedly destroyed US-made HIMARS launcher in Kuzminskoye, Chernihiv Oblast, once again highlighted this fact. The images capture moments when a massive explosion illuminates the frame and flames engulf the scene. The Russian side claims to have hit the launcher with a precision strike from a sensitive Iskander-M ballistic missile. However, at the heart of this claim lies a much more critical question. Are these images a reality presented in the information war between Russia and NATO in the age of digital warfare and propaganda, or are they a cleverly constructed story? The short video was published on Russia's official Telegram channel, Mod Russia, which is frequently used to disseminate frontline information. In the region, located just 12 kilometers from the Russian border and approximately 133 kilometers northeast of Chernihiv, the trajectory of a missile is visible after a massive explosion. The Russian Ministry of Defense claims that its air intelligence units had been tracking the HIMARS launcher for hours before striking it with an Iskander-M tactical missile. While describing this move as a demonstration of surgical precision, they claim that Ukraine's air defenses are now inadequate after months of attacks. For Moscow, this event carries both military victory and symbolic significance. Russian authorities are trying to debunk the myth of the invincibility of Western weapons, including the highly praised HIMARS, which the media previously called a game changer. Russian state media, including TASS, RBC, and NTV, reinforces this message by presenting the video with heroic narratives and patriotic music. However, the Western media remains silent on the other side of the continent. No follow-up, rejection, or approval is coming regarding this matter. This silence often carries a stronger meaning than verbal expressions. While NATO is completely ignoring the issue, the Ukrainian government is avoiding making an official statement. This situation isn't actually a new strategy. Since 2022, Kyiv has consistently denied claims that Russia destroyed a HIMARS, while the Pentagon confirms that all HIMARS systems are still in active service. However, in the contemporary battlefield, silence can sometimes be more effective than outright denial. There are unique risks associated with both accepting and rejecting a claim. Rejecting without evidence risks strengthening the opponent's argument, while verifying it means admitting vulnerability. In this process, audiences in the West are increasingly questioning, if HIMARS is as powerful as it's said to be, why is it targeted so often? Is this situation merely an image problem, or does it indicate Ukraine's operational weaknesses? Reputable media outlets such as the BBC and Reuters are also using similar cautious statements, emphasizing that it is currently impossible to independently verify the claim. The public is stuck in that gray area where perception shapes belief. The true impact of psychological warfare emerges precisely at this point. While traditional thinking assumes conflicts can only be resolved with tanks and missiles, narrative control is becoming the real weapon of the 21st century. When one side releases dramatic images while the other remains silent, global public opinion naturally leans toward the first speaker. This is the essence of contemporary information warfare. In this environment where emotional, visual, and fast-paced content reigns, Ukraine and its allies are also adjusting their strategies accordingly. By avoiding thoughtless speech, they are trying not to contribute to information pollution. On the other hand, Russia is quite effective at dominating the internet space through rapid visual storytelling via statements, briefings, and videos. According to the logic of contemporary propaganda, both tactics seem acceptable because both sides are determined to maintain control over their own versions of events. However, behind the scenes of this information war lies the fact that independent journalists have extremely limited access to conflict zones like Chernihiv or Kuzminskoye. Satellite verification can take days, and evidence is often destroyed during ongoing bombing. This means that in conditions where verification is almost impossible, official military images have become the only reality accessible to the public. Additionally, there's another layer that goes beyond politics: the global arms trade. Regardless of whether it's true or not, the alleged destruction of HIMARS can be used as a warning to NATO suppliers or as a marketing success for Russian defense companies. Propaganda has become as valuable a commodity as hardware in today's conflicts. If the HIMARS were truly destroyed, Russia's message is clear. It wants to demonstrate that it can use its own domestically developed systems to neutralize high-tech weapons from the West. The Iskander-M missile is known for its difficulty in being intercepted because it travels at hypersonic speeds above Mach 6. Such an attack could also prove that Russia can still reach northern Ukraine, which was previously considered reasonably safe. However, if the claim doesn't turn out to be true or is exaggerated, this video could be considered a masterpiece in manipulating perception. Russia could boost the morale of its troops with a single clip, sow doubt about NATO equipment, and shake the West's confidence. Even if the launcher is no longer there, the psychological impact can last for a long time. Naturally, NATO is not indifferent to these developments. They are developing electronic camouflage systems to make HIMARS harder to detect, training Ukrainian operators and improving mobility strategies. The current manifestation of the arms race consists of this constant struggle between claim and refutation, attack and defense. In this conflict, reliability and technology are competing with each other. So, was the HIMARS launcher in Kuzminskoye really destroyed? Currently, there is no independent evidence to support this claim. However, this uncertainty offers a critical lesson in understanding the nature of modern warfare. Critical thinking is more important than ever. Avoiding blind faith in a single claim or video is vital in this digital age. The golden rule for viewers is this: question whose interests the video serves, when it was made public, and what it is saying. Even the largest missile is no longer a decisive factor in modern warfare. The real issue is who controls the narrative. There were also numerous clashes on other fronts in Ukraine today. At 8:30 a.m., Russian motorcycle units began rapidly advancing toward Ukrainian defense lines in small groups. Simultaneously with this movement, Russian surveillance UAVs identified the locations of numerous Ukrainian military facilities. Russian forces deployed a significant number of motorcycle units for close-quarters combat to capture targeted areas. Evaluating intelligence on Russian movements, the Ukrainian side launched a counter-offensive with armored vehicles to neutralize the large Russian convoy. However, Russian engineering units had pre-mined the likely crossing routes of Ukrainian armored vehicles. Therefore, Russian forces were prepared for Ukraine's counter-offensive. A Ukrainian tank moving at high speed hit a mine and was destroyed in a large explosion. The conflict intensified as Russian mobile units reached Ukrainian positions. Russian operators simultaneously began striking Ukrainian targets to support ground troops. Ukrainian soldiers were forced to constantly change positions to avoid the Russian advance. Ukrainian defense lines were systematically targeted by Russian artillery and drones. Despite calls from Russian forces to surrender, Ukrainian soldiers continued their resistance. Russia continued its attacks, coordinating air and ground elements. Kamikaze drones were used to neutralize Ukrainian positions. In one example, a Russian FPV drone conducting reconnaissance in a building detected the location of a Ukrainian soldier hiding near a wall. Ukrainian commanders sent reinforcements of armored personnel carriers to rescue their troops under fire. However, Russian FPV drones destroyed these vehicles one by one. Some Ukrainian units were forced to abandon the vans they were using to escape Russian drone attacks. These vehicles were later completely destroyed by accurate strikes from Russian drones. Russian troops examined Western-made weapons in the Ukrainian positions they captured. Additionally, the Russian Air Force dealt a heavy blow to morning operations by striking the Ukrainian command center with FAB-3000 bombs from Su-34 aircraft. As a result of the target building being completely destroyed, a large number of Ukrainian military prisoners were taken in the Serebryansky forest area. Upon the detection of a Ukrainian Mavic drone control point, Russian intelligence relayed the coordinates to the Air Force. This checkpoint in the Tokarevka settlement was destroyed by a precise LNUR strike. Ukrainian armed forces infantry units retreat from Krasnoarmysk under mortar fire. In Konstantinovka, FPV UAV operators affiliated with the Russian armed forces detected a T-72B3 tank belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces and destroyed it step by step. In Siversk, soldiers from the Russian 2nd Artillery Brigade destroyed 2 UAV control centers of the Ukrainian armed forces. The Sumy region exemplifies the blitzkrieg cycle Russian forces are waging against Ukrainian positions. A drone operator fires a smoke bomb, providing targeting information, and then all hell breaks loose on what they consider strongholds. In the Kharkiv direction, soldiers from the Zapad group of the Russian armed forces destroyed a Ukrainian 2S-3 Katsia howitzer using an FPV UAV. Russian armed forces launched an attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure last night in the city of Kamenskoye, Dnipro-Dzerzhinsk, Dnipropetrovsk region. Approximately 20 unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, reportedly targeted a thermal power plant and a transformer substation. The moment a Russian FPV drone struck a Ukrainian soldier's vehicle on the Zaporizhzhia line was recorded by a Ukrainian soldier. The wounded soldier was seen exiting the vehicle. In the Pokrovsk direction, the destruction of equipment, vehicles, and systems belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces continues. UAV operators from the 68th Separate Motorized Rifle Division of the Russian Armed Forces destroyed Ukrainian positions and vehicles in 2 separate rotations in the Kupiansk region, disrupting ammunition transfers. Russian UAV operators discovered and destroyed ATVs used by Ukrainian soldiers to transport equipment, weapons, and personnel in the Sumy region. UAV operators from the 169th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces continue their operations in the direction of Krasnolymansk and destroy vehicles identified as belonging to Ukrainian soldiers. Artillery units of Russia's 3rd Combined Arms Army destroyed a UAV control center belonging to the Ukrainian forces in the Siversk direction. Russian army forces are advancing in the Dnipropetrovsk region and attacking Pokrovsk. Fighters from the Russian Center Force Group are actively destroying enemy infantry and equipment day and night. Attack aircraft operators supporting the offensive are carrying out precision strikes on targets. The video shows fragments of the destruction of Ukrainian armed forces militants, NATO and other equipment, positions, heavy drone bombers, and communication systems on November 5th. Russian FPV UAV operators destroyed a multiple rocket launcher system belonging to the Ukrainian armed forces that they detected in the direction of Kupiansk.